Welcome to Pathetic, the podcast. If you're hearing my name first, that means Teddy is out. He is, unfortunately, like 90% of the people that I know right now, under the weather. Can't speak. We hope he's doing well. We hope he will be back next week. But I do have Geoff here. Geoff, Happy New Year. How are we doing today?
Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to everybody listening. And I don't know how I dodged this bullet, Mike, because my entire family was sick. Uncle Teddy was sick. My dad didn't even go to the Christmas party because he was sick. He was coughing up a lung, so he stayed home. All the kids, at least
Yep.
90%
Oh,
of them
yeah.
were sick. They're all coughing and sneezing, and somehow I have a little bit of a cold. I don't know if you guys can notice. Maybe it's a little raspy, but outside of that, with the traveling, all the people I was around, somehow I made it back in one piece. But we'll hold down the fort when Uncle Teddy gets better, and we'll be back to the trio next week.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's partially, I think my diet has just been cured meat and cheese and cookies for the last 3 weeks. So maybe that has built up my immunity to make sure that I wasn't sick. But for the next 2 weeks, it's going to be deep breaths is all I'm eating for the next 2 weeks. Um, but yeah, we've been off for a couple of weeks here. I hope you guys enjoyed that Christmas movie episode that we put up last week. Um, but yeah, let's get into the our teams here. I mean, there's not much to talk about when it comes to the Giants and the Jets. This season luckily is ending for us this coming weekend. So, Geoff, I'm curious to hear what you think about where the Giants are right now, and then I'll give you my take on the Jets.
Yeah. So first and foremost, let me just say this, Mike. There's a lot of Giant fans right now that were rooting for the Giants to lose against the Raiders. And I understand the thought process, right? You want to get the draft picks. There's no reason to win at this point. If you think about just the meaning of winning at this point, why? But for me, I'm rooting for the Giants to win. I am sick and tired of going through this process for now, I guess it's been 12, 13 years of rooting for the draft pick. We've been rooting for the draft pick for, again, over a decade. And where's it gotten us? Rooting for draft picks in 2026, right? So why am I going to sit there and just complete the cycle of root for draft picks, root to lose? I was watching that game hoping they'd win. So when Jackson Dart went out there and went, 22 for 30 through 207 passing yards, it would have been more if it was a close game. 48 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. I'm rooting for that. I want to see this kid play well to close out the season. I want him to get used to winning. And I think if he lost the next, or if it was the Raiders and the Cowboys and he lost both those games, I wouldn't be concerned with his psyche, but I still want him to get into that mode of winning. So I am not in the camp of let's tank and lose for the draft picks, just to repeat what we've been doing for all these years. And, listen, I think the Giants are in a position now where, you look back at this year, Mike, and we'll do a year review, I guess, when Uncle Teddy gets back, and we'll look at our horrific season for both teams. But I really do believe the Giants were a product of their schedule because they're not as bad as the record indicates. They competed with some of the best teams in the league. They just didn't have the personnel or the coaching to close the deal. So I'm looking forward to next year. And obviously, we'll get more into that in the next episode. But again, man, where the Giants go from here and where I think they'll end up, I think they might beat Dallas. So I don't think the draft pick's going to be as sexy as the tankers want it to be. But I'll tell you, Mike, I'm rooting for them to beat Dallas. I want to finish this year 2-0.
I couldn't agree with you more. Look, the only reason why you really need to tank for the draft pick is if you don't have the quarterback. You have the quarterback now. You're going to find somebody at 5 or 6 or 7 that you're going to be able to plug in to your team and help you right away, whether that's a wide receiver, whether that's an offensive lineman, whether that's another pass rusher or a corner. Whatever you want to pick at that point is going to be great. You don't need the biggest key, which is the quarterback. So I'm with you. I want to see Jackson Dart learn to win, get used to winning, be expecting to win every single week, and starting to do that with these last 2 games, build some momentum into next year. I mean, look at what Drake May did with the right coach. He started to put some things together his rookie season at the end of the year. all of a sudden now he's got a coach underneath him, he's got a right offensive coordinator, and they're fighting for the 1 seed in the AFC 2 years after being where we are currently. So I'm with you 100%. I think it's crazy if you're a Giant fan to root for to try to get the 1 pick or 2 to trade up and get more picks. You don't need that many. You don't need that. And do you trust, if Joe Shane is going to stay, do you trust him to make a pick that's actually going to be beneficial and make the right move at that point? So I think that's what you really got to worry about more as a Giant fan than anything else.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. If they needed a quarterback, if Fernando Mendoza was on the radar for the Giants fan, then I can understand why you want to lose that game to lock in that number 1 overall pick. But the one benefit to getting that number 1 pick is to potentially trade with you guys, which I think ultimately would have happened. I think the Jets and Giants would have worked out a deal. But I'm not in. I'm sick and tired of being in the market for draft picks. Really, I'm done with it, man. We've been doing this, you know as well as I do. We've been doing this for years, and again, we've had the top 5, the top 10 pick year after year. The Giants had 2 times where they made the playoffs and ended up in the 20s or the 30s. But outside of that, it's just the same old, same old. So winning is fun, right?
Yeah.
I'm watching the Giant Raider game, and I'm enjoying watching Jackson Dart march up and down the field. I'm enjoying watching Tyrone Tracy have a good game. The defense playing well. The coach doing a good job. I don't know if you watched that game, Mike, but this was a well-coached game.
Yep.
They Kafka let Jackson Dart play. And one thing, if you watched the game itself or you saw the highlights, one thing I loved about this game was Jackson Dart played smart. He ran out of bounds. He went down when he had to. He's learning. Right, so these are the things I want to see on top of wins. So again, man, this idea of let's keep getting draft picks. Why? For what?
Right.
To draft more players that end up on another team and doing better there. It's just no.
Yeah.
Winning is fun. I'm enjoying winning. So
yeah, and it's going to give you a good taste going into next year, especially if you beat Dallas this week. You're gonna feel good going into next season. You're gonna hopefully find the right coach. Find an offensive coordinator who knows what they're doing, and you guys are off and running. So
let me ask you a question, Mike. Do you have one coach that you would pick? Because I don't think you ever – maybe you did, and I just don't remember. But do you have a coach that you think the Giants should really, really go after?
I mean, I've always loved, and I was hoping that he was going to go to the Jets at one point, but I would love Mike McCarthy to come here if that's possible. Now, obviously, I think – either of the 2 coaches in that Baltimore Pittsburgh game, that might be a loser leaves town kind of match at this point. If whoever loses that game, they might be fired the next day. And if I'm the Giants, if either of those 2 guys are there, that's got to be your first phone call is to one of those 2 guys. And then if they do come in for an interview, you don't let them leave the building without signing that contract, because those are 2 unbelievably great coaches, and you would be hard-pressed to find somebody better than those 2 to run this team going forward.
Yeah, as it stands right now, my number 1, I agree, is Mike McCarthy. But I do agree, I think this game coming up, it's Sunday night, right?
Correct, Sunday night football, yeah.
Yeah, that may be the game, which it shouldn't be, because I think they should keep both of those coaches.
Correct.
But that might be the game of who stays and who goes. And if Tomlin or Harbaugh goes, then that's the easy pick. And I think either of those 2 would take the job immediately, considering the Giants' situation. And if I had to pick one, I think I'd probably go with Harbaugh. Younger, seems like he'd relate to the players more. He's more of an all-around coach. Obviously hiring a staff is very important, but I think Tomlin is going to be so reliant on hiring the right staff, which I think he will. But I think Harbaugh is more an all-around coach, as a special teams background. So I would pick him over Tomlin, in my opinion. But I just don't see how you can let one of those 2 guys go.
Right.
I just don't. I honestly. But if one of them go, the Giants should, like you said, man, bring him in for the interview. Interview all the candidates, do whatever you have to do, follow the rules. and hire one of those two. There's no question
Yep.
about it. But as of today, if they both stay, I'm with you. It's Mike McCarthy. No question.
Yeah. I mean, I would prefer Tomlin just because he's never had a losing season in Pittsburgh ever.
Yep.
And, he doesn't know how to lose. He's not a losing coach. So I really like that about him. And I love, he would be great in a press conference in New York. I mean, he's fun watching his press conference in Pittsburgh. I can't imagine what his press conferences would be like in New York. I mean, that's like Rex Ryan type of, must-see television. So I'm in for that if that were to be the case. So.
Yeah, more of like a just like composed Rex Ryan. Rex went a little off the handle, like that one in that press conference he had where he was like, "I'll stand backwards and answer the question." Like he was going crazy because he was, he's out of his mind. I think Tomlin would be more, again, a composed Rex where he gives you all kinds of sound bites and quotes in the New York Post, but just more reserved, and you're not going to laugh at him like we did Rex.
You're going to have to bring out the thesaurus for some of his words that he's going to use in this press conference. You're going to be like, I got to look this up to see what this means.
Exactly. So, but listen, man, to end it on the Giants, they're going to be an attractive job. There's no question. And,
absolutely.
I'm not sitting here anointing Dart as the next Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, but if you're a coach, you're looking for a quarterback, right? If you're going to a new team, and especially a young quarterback who has a lot of potential. And the Giants had that along with, decent talent on that roster. So as bad as the Giants' record is and as bad as they were this year, the bad losses, the Abdul Carter stuff, ironically enough, they're one of the most attractive coaching vacancies we've seen in a long time. So
absolutely. They are going to be the number one job this offseason, unless, again, Pittsburgh or Baltimore opens up because they decide to move on. But even then, I would still argue that the Giants is more attractive because you have Dart on the rookie contract. You don't have to pay Lamar Jackson, $40 or $50 million, or have Aaron Rodgers come back for another year of that will he, won't he kind of thing over there in Pittsburgh. So I'm with you. I think the Giants is, if you're a coach, you were waiting for this year for the Giants to have that sort of opening to come up. And that's like a perfect situation for you to come in, install your culture, and really change things around, because they were very close to being a team that was a 7, 8, 9 win team with the right coaching. I mean, you're in almost all these games for the most part, and you just, piss them away in the fourth quarter. Yeah. So, with the right coach and the right strategy, I think there's no reason why this team right now couldn't be a 7 or 8 win team.
Yeah, I would say the one potential team vacancy that could take place, depending on what happens the rest of the way here, is Buffalo. Right? If Buffalo gets knocked out in the first round, I think they're going to get rid of McDermott, which they probably should. And they're going to be above the Giants head and shoulders, because we know we kind of know what Jackson Dart is, but we don't know what the future is. Going into a Josh Allen team, he's basically, the easiest guy to coach in the league if it's a vacancy, right? So that would be the one team. I don't think Pittsburgh would be above the Giants because they have no quarterback.
Right? Exactly.
And like you said, with Baltimore, you're paying Lamar a lot of money. And I'm not so sure where is he on the decline? He might be. His playing style or the running.
He always gets hurt.
I would probably put the Giants above those two teams, including Baltimore, even with Lamar, because of the future, because of what you have in Dart, what he could potentially be. But yeah, my one fear is McDermott goes and, either Tomlin or McCarthy take that job. But
to go hang out, to go be with Josh Allen and have Dable be his offensive coordinator again and start.
Dude, listen, Brian Dable should be the hottest offensive coordinating candidate on the job because he on the market, because he is a very good offensive coordinator, right? And I know Dart is inherently talented. We see it, but a lot of that had to do with Dable. Dable helped him, right? So he's going to be. If I'm the Jets, if I'm Aaron Glenn, if he's still there, I would consider bringing in Dable. Honestly, I think that would be a great move for them. But like I said, time will tell.
Yeah, but you guys are in a pretty good spot. I would certainly, if I'm choosing, but if I want to be in the Giants situation or the Jets, I'm obviously picking the Giants at this point because the Jets season has just absolutely crashed and burned. I mean, you're hearing all these rumors about Aaron Glenn. I don't think he's going anywhere, personally. I mean, this is not an NFL roster that he's putting together on the field right now, and they just don't have the talent to compete. Or even if you had the best effort that you could possibly get out of these guys, they're just not there. I mean, you see Breece Hall is really the only guy on this team who is actually worth being on an NFL roster at this point. I mean, you look at their secondary is, all third string guys or guys off the practice squad and everything. And, half the team is on injured reserve at this point because they're just phoning it in right now. But they really have a lot of holes that they have to fill on this team. There's obviously the biggest one is quarterback. I mean, that's the one that you have to fill some way or the other. And unfortunately, you're not going to get the one pick. So you're probably not getting Fernando Mendoza. And the way some of these other quarterbacks have looked, I don't know if they're exactly going to be the guys who you want them to be in the NFL. I think Mendoza has shown that he's got the goods at this point. He's got everything you want to see out of a quarterback. He's got the clutch gene. He's got the arm strength. He's got everything you want. He's not too cocky. He's not one of these Johnny Manziel type of guys. So obviously you would love to see if you could get him, but if the Raiders are getting the number one pick, you would have to really do some really Raider type things in order to not take Fernando Mendoza at 1 and then figure out how to go from there. So you're going to have to look at some sort of plan B when it comes to quarterback, whether that is, if you don't love any of the other guys this year, finding a stopgap like a Kirk Cousins, like a Malik Willis in Green Bay could be an option for a year or two. And you're still in this quarterback limbo, and you're hoping next year you get a good draft pick, because the Jets' schedule next year is the same as the Giants' schedule this year, with those brutal games against the whole AFC West and the NFC West and NFC North. So you're playing all these really good teams. So if you don't have a quarterback, or if you have a rookie quarterback and you don't have the right coaching staff, you could look at a repeat of this year going into next year. So
Yeah.
I'm certainly not optimistic about next year, and that's saying a lot for me, because normally every year I'm picking something where I'm going to be very optimistic going forward, but you can't be optimistic with this team right now because there's just too many holes. You're still not sure about Aaron Glenn, what he's going to be. I still think you got to give him more chances because, again, you didn't really have much of a roster behind him this year to really work with, especially towards the end of the year. I mean, you had nothing this whole month of December. So, and that's bringing the heat up on him. So, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, the Jets are in a very, very bad spot right now, and they needed the Giants' help. They really did, for a few reasons. First of all, the fact that Mendoza is now going to get drafted by the Raiders. And to me, and I watch a lot of college football, especially being down south. College is bigger than the NFL, so I'm forced to watch it anywhere I go. There's only one good quarterback, NFL good quarterback, in this draft, and that's Fernando Mendoza. Dante Moore, who I know Uncle Ted likes, I don't want to bash him too much because he's not here to defend him. He's basically Bryce Young, a poor man's Bryce Young. He's not going to succeed in the NFL. I don't think he will, in my opinion. Not a fan of Ty Simpson, not a fan of Diego Pavia, and I'm a huge fan of Mendoza. But the problem is, again, the Raiders, like you said, Mike, there's no shot they're not going to draft him unless they pull some Raider stuff. But the biggest problem the Jets have right now is Aaron Glenn. And I think we need to address that, because here's the issue. You're right, Mike. You got to give him another chance. Maybe we disagree on the reason why. I would fire his ass today, okay? If the Jets were even somewhat remotely close to being an attractive job. The problem is, if you get rid of Glenn, who are you replacing him with? Who is going to take the Jets job over the vacancies that are going to take place this year? The Jets will be at the bottom of the list because they have no quarterback. They really don't have a roster outside of a couple of good players on offense. There's nothing attractive about the Jets. So you might as well run it one more time with Glenn and just see what happens. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're all wrong about him. He might turn out to just have a lesson learned in year one. I don't see it, but it's possible. Yeah. But you to get rid of him at this point, you can't. And I think they should, but they can't do it. And the biggest issue right now is, again, I don't know what he does next year. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to bring in, the guys you mentioned, whether it's Marcus Mariota, Malik Willis, or, Cousins, or name the guy. How much better is it going to get? I don't know. I don't see it. But you look at this last month, Mike. I mean, think about this. I couldn't believe this number when I saw it. Getting outscored 153-46 in the last 4 weeks, which, even more shocking than the number, it's the worst 4-game stretch in the history of the league. Not this year. In the history of the league. To me, if you look at this coach's first year, this is like a Gerard Mayo situation where he should get fired. But it's a bad comparison, because I heard some people say, like, well, look what the Patriots did. They got rid of Gerard Mayo. They had Mike Vrabel waiting in the wings.
And
right?
They had Drake May sitting there that was ready to go, and you saw he was showing signs that he was going to be doing something. Brady Cook is not that guy. He is certainly not the quarterback. Justin Fields is not the quarterback that you are going to be going forward with. Tyrod Taylor is not the guy either, because he always gets hurt. There is no quarterback on this roster right now that you can go through, and there's not pieces here that somebody's going to come in and be able to fix this right away. This is going to be a turnaround where you're going to have to deal with a lot of pain going forward here for the next, year or two, until you have a quarterback that you can actually start to build around, because it's just not there.
Yeah. And the problem is too, Mike, the stopgaps aren't attractive. You look at the guys that you can get, unless you can make a trade for somebody, which I don't see that happening. But even to get a stopgap in here, I mean, is Marcus Mariota or whatever, go down the list. Are these guys coming in and going to win, 7, 8, 9 games with the Jets under this coach? There's no way. So I'm trying to figure out what the solution can be for the Jets. And what I would do is I would take a flyer on a quarterback late in the draft, or even third round, right? You have so many draft picks in the next 2 years. Even if someone like Diego Pavia, who I don't like, but if he's available in, let's say, the third round, I'd probably take him and have him compete with, whoever. I'm sure he'll have like
Malik
9
Willis or somebody.
Yeah, and even though he'll have like 9 mugshots in New York if he plays here, he's somebody who actually has some talent. I just think he's too small. But I think he's going to fall in the draft, similar to why Shador did. So he might be there for you guys to get, and you can have him compete, man. Maybe he's good. We'll see. We'll see if that ever does happen. But it's just the Jets are in such a rough spot now, man, where I don't know what the right solution is, except to trade up to the first pick and get Mendoza, which is obviously not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, if you gave the Raiders all your first round picks for the next 2 years to get Mendoza, I think you might be able to convince them to do that.
Yeah.
But then you're handicapping yourself, that you're really putting your eggs into this Mendoza basket, that A, he's going to be the guy, and B, you have the coaches in place to develop him the right way, which, they have certainly not shown that they can do that. I mean, you look at the guys that they've picked, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, these guys go elsewhere, and all of a sudden they're now, winning all these games and throwing all these touchdowns. And so I don't know if I trust the brainchild of the Jets to develop a guy if you're going to put all your eggs into that basket to get Mendoza. So the options are to do the stopgap or take a flyer on somebody. And either of those two, if they get off to a bad start next year, they're probably going to fire Glenn midway through the season. If they're 1-7 again, and they're not competitive in any of these games, and MetLife Stadium is 3/4 empty, there's no way that you could keep Glenn going forward, because it's just not. At some point, you have to win some sort of games to keep your job. You can't just be a guy who's consistently 25 games under 500 after 2 years and expect to keep your job going forward.
Yeah. Something just came to my mind, Mike, and this is, I don't know if you know you're a Seinfeld fan. When George Costanza said, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." I got something kind of nuts for you right now, which I still think it kind of makes sense, right? What if the Jets did this? They trade the house to move up to get Mendoza. and they bring in Brian Dable as the offensive coordinator, and you let Dable just run the offense and let Glenn completely stay out of it and let
Yep.
Dable run the offense with Fernando Mendoza, would you trade basically everything you got for Sauce to move up to
It
get Mendoza and bring in Brian Dable as the OC?
absolutely, because you know that he's developed guys before. He's done it twice now. He's done Josh Allen. He looks like he's done it with Jackson Dart in terms of how he was developing going forward. I would do that in a second. I would be ideal, but do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. But I would love it if it did. I would sign up for that tomorrow.
It's feasible. Like they can
Yeah.
actually do it because Brian Dable's looking for a job right now, right? Well, I guess the first call you have to make before the draft, obviously, right before you hire Dable, is to make that trade. And then I
Yep.
think if Dable knew that he had a first overall pick with Fernando Mendoza, which I guarantee you he likes, like I think everybody likes Mendoza, especially after
Yeah.
this weekend,
Yeah.
he takes that job in 2 seconds. So I think
Yep.
that's something that, again, like you said, probably not going to happen, but it's not a crazy idea.
And let's not get crazy. The Jets might be picking it too,
Yeah.
because there's no guarantee that the Giants don't win this week, and some of the other teams are looks like they're competitive and might win some more games. So there's definitely a chance the Jets could be picking it too, and it's really not that much of a move from 2-1. Now, granted, again, you're gonna have to give up more because the Raiders are going after the exact same player you are, but you know, and believe it or not, there is still an outside chance, I believe, if the Raiders win, the Giants win, and I think two other teams win, the Jets could. There's like a 1% chance that the Jets could slide into that number one pick.
So
So,
you're telling
that,
me there's a chance.
yeah, what you're saying, there's a chance. Exactly. Give me the Dumb and Dumber. Uh, give me the bright blue suit, and let's rock and roll here.
Yeah, listen, man. If you're a Jet and Giant fan, you're looking for that 1% chance everywhere you possibly can. So
That's
you
all we
never know.
got. Unfortunately, that's all we got is that 1% chance to try to do something because, again, this is probably the most pessimistic I've been in a while when it comes to the Jets, just because there's no real way out of this right now. So, for me to be that this down is pretty bad. So,
Yeah. Well, listen,
but
we're both down, to be honest. We're down for different reasons. I'm disappointed because I thought after the Denver game, or really before the Denver game, before the fourth quarter of the Denver game, more specifically, that we
right.
were on some kind of a run here where we can make the playoffs. And then it just
Yep.
went, so my emotions have been up and down and left and right, and you're down because the Jets are just doing Jet things, like they've been
Yeah.
doing for 15 years,
Yeah.
so it's just, another song and dance to the football teams that we root for. This is what we signed up for, Mike. It is
I
what it
know.
is.
I
And
know.
you can't get out of it.
This is the business we've chosen, if you want to say from The Godfather. In terms of what we decided that we wanted to be Jet and Giant fans, and unfortunately, this is what you deal with. So,
Yep.
but let's switch gears a little bit here. Let's go a little bit more bigger picture. Let's do a little reflecting on 2025. We are recording this on January 2nd. Didn't get a chance to do any sort of New Year's resolutions. So I'm curious, Geoff. I want to hear your worst take of 2025, and I think we all have a few that we probably would want back. And then give me a prediction for 2026 that's a little bit bold and off the beaten path. So I'm curious where you are with those two things.
Yeah. So the first one is the obvious one that Jackson Dart needs to sit for a year. That was a huge mistake. And I'm not so sure how the season would have turned out if he started over Russell Wilson. But, I thought Jackson Dart was a project. I liked him. If you remember whatever episode it was, our fourth or fifth episode, my ideal draft was Abdul Carter and Jackson Dart, and they got those two. I always liked Dart, but I thought he needed some time, and I was way off. And Russell Wilson coming in, which I thought was the right idea, was horrible and really started this team off on the wrong foot. So my worst take by far, and there's many of them, but this is the
Yeah.
worst one. Yeah, this is the worst one by far, that Jackson Dart needed a year and Russell Wilson to start over him. We're going what I think is going to happen next year, right? So Jackson Dart, I think, will be a top 5 quarterback in the league. I really do. I think he has the talent. I think year 2, learning the speed of the game, getting smarter the way he plays. You could see it. You saw it against the Raiders. You saw him play smarter, just more intelligent in terms of his football IQ, not to get hurt. And he's going to have Neighbors next year, hopefully for a full year. He's going to have Scatterbo back. Wan'Dale Robinson is turning into a true number 2 receiver, a guy that went for 1,000 yards this year. And I think they'll get another receiver. So I think it's going to be set up perfectly for Jackson Dart to be a top 5 guy in the league. It's a wild take. I know some people think I'm crazy for saying that, but I truly do believe, and I'm not saying this as a biased Giant. I hate the Giants. I hate them. But I do believe, I really do believe that Jackson Dart has the talent to be a top 5 guy in the league.
That is a take for sure. We will certainly play this thing back probably in October, and we'll see where we are. But yeah, it's possible. I certainly think it's not the most outlandish thing you could have said out of your mouth, but I certainly think he's got the capabilities, and it's going to depend on who the coach is and who the offensive coordinator is. But yeah, I mean, who knows? We'll see how it goes. But if you look at my 2025, I think my worst one, other than some of my mush picks, which were really bad at some points, the sailing and everything else. But if you look at my win-loss record for the Jets, having them go 12-5 or 11-6, whatever I had them going at the beginning of the year. I mean, that's obviously the hottest take that was completely wrong all the way through. I mean, don't even need to explain it. I mean, it just was as it normally is when I go through this win-loss every single year. It's typically ends up this way. So that's going to be probably my worst take next year as well, is going to be that the Jets are going to finish 11-5, because I'll probably still pick them 11-5 next year when it comes to the win-loss. But that's not where I'm going with my bold prediction for 2026. I am sticking with a team that actually brings the New York area joy, and that is the New York Knicks. I am predicting that the Knicks will not only make the NBA Finals, but they will win the NBA Finals. They win the NBA Cup this year. I know it's not a real tournament and it's, not a huge thing, but they beat really good teams to get there. And, this team is set up to win this year. They have the coach in Mike Brown. They have the players. Brunson is as clutch as you could possibly be. And I don't think it's that outlandish for them to say that, they're going to make the finals, because everyone in the East is, hurt. The Pacers aren't there. The Celtics aren't there. I don't trust the Cavaliers. I don't trust the Pistons. They're way too young still. But yeah, give me the Knicks raising a banner and us having a parade down the Canyon of Heroes for the first time in like 15 years for a Big Four sports team. So
that is not an outlandish take for the Knicks. That's probably way more probable than Jackson Dart being top 5, because you said it, Mike. They have the coach. The best thing the coach does is how he utilizes the bench, which is so important in the playoffs. I love Thibodeau. I thought they shouldn't have got rid of him, but my mind has changed after watching this coach, the way he utilizes the entire team. Thibodeau was so 5 or 6 guy heavy. This guy knows how to use the entire bench effectively. And I actually don't think that's even remotely close to crazy that the Knicks win a championship. I think I don't know who the favorite is at this point, but I would say the
probably
Knicks.
Oklahoma City's probably the favorite again, because they're a wagon, and I think they won like their first 19 games coming off the championship last year. So, they're going to be the team to beat, but who says they don't get knocked off in the Western Conference? The Western Conference is tough. You got San Antonio, who's playing well. You have, all these the Lakers could be sneaky in there. You have Denver. You have all these guys in the Western Conference. That's a gauntlet to get through, where the East should be a lot easier to get through, especially Boston's not where they were last year. Indiana's not where they were last year. And, the one team that does scare me, though, is Detroit, because they have a couple of guys. Cade Cunningham is legit, and he could be the next, Tyrese Halliburton or Trae Young or the menace that comes into Madison Square Garden and just
Yeah.
shoots the lights out and knocks them out in the second or third round. So
every generation that we've grown up in, we've had that one guy, whether it be Reggie Miller back in the day, Halliburton. There's always somebody there that's like the Nick killer. And let's hope for our sake, for Knick fans' sake in general, that Cunningham isn't that guy. But he does have the makings to be that guy. There's no question.
Yep. So we will see. We will play those two back. We will go into that. One other thing that I think we could probably say is our worst things is our NFL picks. Luckily, the season is coming to an end here. It's still a very tight race. It's still up for grabs. I think we're going to run it through till the end of the year to see how it goes through the playoffs. But if we're looking at regular season, it is very, very close. I went 2-1 last week. Teddy went 1-2. Geoff 0 for 3 last week was not ideal.
No.
So the standings right now, I am in first place with a whopping 26-25 record. Teddy is in second place at 25-25-1, and Geoff now in third place, 24-27. So we are all right in it. Geoff, I'm going to let you go first for the picks, and I will also give Teddy's picks, and then I'll give mine from there. But yeah, I'll let you go first, Geoff, and we'll go from there.
All right, so we're going to start with the Bucks -3 over the Panthers. I know the bloom, kind of came off the Todd Bowles rose, but in Tampa, I like the Bucks winning by 10. I still am not really sold on the Panthers. They're 8-8. They can still get in the playoffs with a losing record, which is typical for the NFC South, since Drew Brees left. But I do like the Bucks beating the Panthers by at least 10. Second game, I'm going to go. This is a big number, Mike. I was very hesitant to do this, but I'll give you my reason why. I like the Texans -10 over the Colts. It's a big number, but I don't know how the hell the Colts are going to score even a single point against this Texans defense. And I'll take it a step further. I think they're going to get shut out. I really do. They might sneak a field goal in, maybe in garbage time or whatever, just to put up some points. But I actually think my, bonus prediction will be that they get shut out by the Texans. And my final game is I'm going to go with the Ravens -4 over the Steelers. And no, it's not because I want Mike Tomlin. It's because the Steelers without Metcalf, they just can't score, man. You saw it last week, bro. Like, this reminds me of when the Giants were on their way to back-to-back Super Bowls, and Burris shot himself in the foot, literally shot himself in the foot. And the season went to hell. Eli was all out of sorts. Their whole game plan just went completely, shot to you-know-what. And I think that's what's happening with the Steelers. So I think the Ravens, I think they actually do a lot of damage against the Steelers this week. I really do. So give me the Bucks -3 over Carolina, the Texans -10 over the Colts, and the Ravens -4 over the Steelers. Final week, Geoff's picks.
All right. Well, we will see how those will end up here. I'm going to go through Teddy's right now. We have Ted likes New Orleans against +3.5 against Atlanta. He's on the Shuck train. I think that's, spoiler alert. We'll see how that pick goes with mine, but I kind of like that one quite a bit. He has the Giants +3.5 against Dallas, not buying into Dak Prescott and seeing Jackson Dart finishing the year strong. And Geoff, he's going against you. He's taking Carolina +3 against Tampa. I think he's done with Todd Bowles just like he was when he was the Jets coach. So he's going with that. So Saints +3.5, Giants +3.5, Panthers +3. Teddy's picks 3 dogs for him. So for me, I'm also going to go with the Saints +3.5 against the Falcons. I love Tyler Shuck. I wish he was my quarterback. It's one less team that is going to be looking for a quarterback in the draft is the Saints. So that's one less team you got to jump if they finish ahead of you because they're not taking a quarterback there. So and the Falcons are finished at this point. I think they might be looking for a quarterback, honestly, going forward, because who knows what Penix is going to do going forward there. So give me the Saints plus 3.5. I hate to do it, but I have to. I'm going to take the Chiefs minus 5.5 against the Raiders. I mean, this Raiders team might not even show. You might be able to show up at Allegiant Stadium and say you want to play for the Raiders, and they'll sign you to a 10-day contract and put you in uniform and let you go out there and throw the ball around for a little bit. Because this team has absolutely zero interest in playing and winning this game whatsoever. So they might not score a point in this game, and all the Chiefs have to do is hit 2 field goals to win 6-0. I think that's probably the final score of this game is 9-3 or something like that. So they will cover. It will be close, but give me the Chiefs minus 5.5 versus the Raiders, and give me the Chicago Bears as my third pick, minus 3 against the Lions. I think the Lions are resetting. They're not really going to be in it. The Bears still have a shot, depending on what happens in the Seattle-San Francisco game, that they could potentially have a chance at the 1 or the 2 seed, building their way up, really building themselves up for a deep playoff run. I think they're a wagon that I think you want to try to get behind. They're going to be a dangerous team in the playoffs. I think Caleb Williams is finally, coming into himself. So give me the Bears minus 3. So we have Saints plus 3.5, Chiefs minus 5.5, Bears minus 3. Mikey Mush's picks for week 18, the final week. Thank God it's over of the 2025 NFL 2025-2026 NFL season. So there we go. Geoff, this has been fun. I hope Teddy feels better. I hope neither of us get sick over the next couple of days here. Hope everybody else stays healthy as well. Stay away from other people. Cough into your, go back to all the pandemic stuff you used to do, cough into your elbow and wash your hands, and the stuff that you should be doing anyway. But now now that it's cold season, you got to do it a little bit more vigilantly. But
yeah, I remember during COVID, like they had on the bathroom wall, wash your hands. They had to be reminded. Wash your hands. This is what you should be coughing into your arm. You should be washing your hands. So live like a clean human being so you don't get sick. Let's put it that way.
Exactly. Well, everyone enjoy. We'll be back next week, hopefully with Teddy feeling better. Thanks everyone, and again, subscribe. Our link tree is in the bottom corner. Please subscribe. We're trying to build this thing up in 2026. That's one of our resolutions here, is to build up the following and get us into new heights here. So, but thanks everyone for listening, and have a great day.
Take care, guys.
Thanks.